in a talent scarce market. And finally, we'll wrap up by really interactive panel discussion and to address the Q&A that you have submitted throughout the webinar. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time to our first speaker, Leslie, to share on the topic of work-life balance, your key to talent attraction. Over to you, Leslie.
Thanks, Fionn. Hi, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, so great to see you all again virtually. Hopefully, we have an opportunity in the last part of the year to have a coffee catch-up and meet face-to-face. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Leslie. I basically head up our client solution division here at Randstad Hong Kong and Greater China. My role is really to be responsible for managing our key account relationships across some of the industries and basically delivering to these accounts, while also providing a bit of employer and talent branding strategies to my clients. As some of you know, I am a parent to two young boys, so life can be a bit busy and chaotic, and on top of that, a very demanding and lively work schedule that we have here. But with that in mind, it's also important to manage really your physical and mental health and really balance this out. So I'll be talking a little bit about work-life balance, and I think that also means, focusing on the right things and ensuring that we can all use a bit of exercise and eating right. I also grew up in Canada, for those of you know, so sports plays a huge pivotal part of my life. Hockey, yes, is a big part of our sort of our national sport, but I recently took up tennis, so that's where you see that picture of me and my son, and I'm doing this with him now. So the great thing I think about working with Randstad, and to make a bit of a plug here, is we really have the ability to really manage our work into our daily lives. So finally now I am able to take him to some of the practices on a weekday. So it's really good to see that this really segues into my point about Hong Kongers' expectation on work-life balance. Next slide. So before we kind of get into the topic of work-life balance, I think perhaps we really need to start by asking ourselves, do we actively communicate and market our EVPs to those outside our organization from a talent attraction perspective? I think most of the times it's through word of mouth, maybe even through certain publications we read, but how often do you guys update your own company website and through your own social media streams? In the Randstad employer brand research that we conducted at the beginning of this year, we have really found that basically 52% of respondents will go onto the website of your company and do a little bit of digging, go on social media, take a look at the information there and really understand, do your values line up with what they want? Because it's quite alarming to see that 1 in 2 people wouldn't even work for a company that has a bad reputation, even with a pay increase. So that, I think, really speaks to the topic of how do you kind of position yourself when it comes to the talent management piece in that sense. Next slide, please. So I think we have all sort of heard this term great resignation, right? But you can't really talk about talent attraction without mentioning this concept. And this is a fun fact. Sorry, we're just going to go back to that one slide for a second. This is a fun fact. So I'm sure by now, most of you have heard this term, great resignation. And interestingly to note, the term was actually coined by a professor in the London School of Management, which talks about a higher than usual number of employees voluntarily leaving the job in early 2021. And for reasons such as job dissatisfaction, wage stagnation, the rise of cost of living, and of course, safety concerns over the pandemic. This has led really many people to really rethink the purpose and the employer-employee dynamics, and most importantly, what they want to do with their careers, right? And I think also, if you think about it, this presents a very unique opportunity for talent acquisition specialists, and I think we have a number here in the call, to really, rethink what, in terms of employer branding and refresh and refine the talent attraction strategies to really appeal to the modern job seeker. Next slide. So when we look at this, what are some of the reasons why you think employees in Hong Kong are resigning from their jobs? Well, in our survey, we have found that the most important EVP and the driving forces behind people leaving their employer is really simply that they want work-life balance initiatives. I think it goes without saying, Hong Kong is probably one of the most expensive places to live, call home. But even at that, you look at it and you think, well, salary and benefits really takes a back seat for most people. I would say, personal life is more important than work, and being able to prioritize your life and incorporate it with your job is really top of mind for most people. Next slide, please. Great. Let me just back up here a little bit. So, when we kind of break that down even further, you can see that compared to the global average, our feelings and attitudes, along with how a job fits in our personal life is a huge motivator on our decisions to leave an employer and to leave a job. The fact is that in most people, especially in 2022, I think personal life is far more important than work life. And this is, a very alarming statistic. Next slide. So now that we kind of understand, why are people leaving, let's really shift the dynamic here and see where are they going and what are they looking for in their next move? What are people in Hong Kong asking for from their employers? And for the first time in our research in 10 years, and we've been doing this research for 10 years with the help of Kantar Insights, which we partner. So it's a third-party sort of insights company that we're looking to do this survey. And for the first time in 10 years, work-life balance ranks amongst one of the top EVPs for Hong Kong. So I think that in itself is a testament to where sort of things are moving as we move into the latter part of the year. And as we kind of put that down in our survey across the entirety of Hong Kong, and mind you, the survey was conducted in the early January months of this year, we asked the respondents to really rank these companies, the top 75 largest commercial employers known by at least 10% of the population, in ranking a company based on these 10 EVP, employee value proposition drivers, with work-life balance being on par with salary and benefits, followed by how a company is seen as being financially healthy as the top 3 EVPs. When I present these findings to my clients, I always ask them to evaluate themselves against each EVP and see how they would rate basically internally. And it's very important to review your talent attraction piece to see what employees want versus what they're perceived to offer. Are you making that sort of connection with the people that are in the community and understanding what they want and seeing if this is something that you are able to offer? And as we start to plot that onto a graph, you can see year on year, there has been a huge gap. The gap is sort of, it hasn't widened. It has basically come together a little bit closer and closer. And I think this is a big reason for, the kind of economic climate we're facing, pandemic, the fact that a lot of people are looking elsewhere for employment and not just outside of Hong Kong, but, outside Asia Pacific. Where are they finding, opportunities where they can improve their work-life balance and make work part of what they do on a day-to-day? I think this is going to be top of mind and a big conversation of piece for most people and most clients. So now let's really kind of look at this and trying to dig into the details a little bit more. And this is where I was just mentioning around the perception for what your company is seen to offer versus what companies or employees actually want. And what's interesting to note here is the ones that are highlighted in blue. And you can still see that there's a massive gap when it comes to work-life balance. Many employees are saying that this is of high importance, but ranking it relatively low when they're asked how these companies are perceived when it comes to some of the initiatives that they're able to offer. Simply put, many companies we speak to don't do enough when it comes to marketing their EVPs, and that speaks to the mindset of Hong Kong people. As employer branding specialists, I think we really need to close the gap, and we need to speak the language of the people in Hong Kong and understand what attracts and retains top-level talent in an organization in order to have a very competitive edge, because as we know, Hong Kong is already a very candidate short-driven market. Breaking that further, a little bit further, I think we also take into account that there are different gender biases and sort of different gender expectations when it comes to certain EVPs. For myself, I could say, work as a father of 2 young children, I think my wife and I would agree that either one of us would rank work-life balance as 1 and 2. And really, I encourage you all to review your own organization composition and understand, what are your employees expecting of you? What are the female and male employees expecting? Are you really conducting the satisfaction surveys on an annual basis and understanding what they're looking for? I think these are all great sort of starting points to understand when it comes to talent expectation in 2022. So now it's up to this point, I've talked a lot about sort of the importance of work-life balance and what Hong Kongers want. But let's really break that down a little bit further and understand, what does work-life balance truly mean? I think at the top of mind, a lot of people would think work-life balance means flexi hours or being able to work from home. But is there really more? And I think the reality is, as we kind of shift back into post-pandemic, most companies are shifting back into offices, going back into the office. I know for our company as well, most of us are back in the office, although we do have that flexibility of being able to work from home. So the ease of the pandemic is really, I think it's ideal, but in terms of sort of easing people back into the office, that's going to be a norm. So regardless of how you see it, I think the idea is that most people will expect from their employers that it will be sort of a work-life balance, and having the ability to work from home is going to be this given standard nowadays. Yeah, so exactly. In our survey, you can see that basically 3 in 10 people have said that if they are not given the flexibility to work for an organization, they would rather look elsewhere and find somebody that will offer this piece. And I think that speaks volumes when it comes to, are you doing the right things to offer what Hong Kongers want? So in our survey across the entirety of Hong Kong back in January, we asked the respondents to really, look at these sort of the gaps and understand, okay, where is it in terms of work-life balance, aside from, as I said, working from home and flexi hours, what are the other areas that we need to take into account? And I think where the other areas we really need to look into are also fair compensation. Are you paying your employees fairly? It has been said that employees who are not fairly remunerated are likely to be distracted or less motivated. Also, with the rise of COVID, again, health and benefits become really top of mind. And we as recruiters also are asked quite a lot by candidates, are there spousal support? Are our children covered? What are the number of sick days that are allowed in your organization? The fact is, more people want physical and mental health support to live a healthier and more productive life. So now let's look at some of the best practices across the industry. And I think these are some of the few. Obviously, there's a lot more, but I think it's worthwhile to mention some of these that we have seen in sort of the last couple months. So no biases here. I'm obviously going to talk about my own organization first, but these 2 pictures were taken from colleagues of mine in Randstad Hong Kong, Singapore. And in our organization, we do allow an initiative of work from anywhere, essentially, where they have up to 4 to 8 weeks to work anywhere in the world. And this has really given a lot of people in our organization who have family outside of Hong Kong to be able to be with their loved ones. And I think that really speaks to sort of a lot of people in our organization to show you that we do care about sort of, their own personal health, their family well-being, and all that, and being able to step away from the job once in a while. I'm sure by now, a lot of you have heard that New World Development has also launched some initiatives over the past couple of, I think it was 2-3 months ago, where they offered 4.5 days in the summer that without prorating the salary, of course. And it was on news, social media outlets. And I think this is a really good thing to share with you in that, I think they did a great job of driving this and promoting it across all platforms. And this has really, I would say, done some great work for them, because we also have a lot of candidates that call in and ask about New World, and these are not job seekers. These are people that might be passive in their job approach, but they want to know, what are other companies offering? Are they looking at hiring potentially for the next quarter and all this? And LinkedIn as well, offering additional sick sort of paid leaves to really unwind. And I think these are initiatives that we've really seen a big push when it comes to employers offering different benefits to really attract talent. So in summary, I think there's a lot of good takeaways here, and I could really use the whole hour to talk to you, but I'm sure you're all looking forward to Jodi and Kunal's presentation as well. If you'd like to understand more, feel free to drop me an email. You can also download the report using that QR code. And if you are part of the top 75 companies, we do have a specific company report, which compares you to companies in your sector. And I'll be happy to kind of share that insight with you individually as well. So that's it for me. Thanks, everyone. And over back to you, Theon.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Again, if you have any questions for Leslie or for any of the panelist speakers, you can now submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we will come back to you shortly in the panel discussion. Now, we will have our second speaker, Jodi, to share on the topic of employees' well-being lies in everything we do. Over to you, Jodi.
Thanks, Theon. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jodi Kwok of Swire Properties, and it's my honor to be one of the speakers today to share what we have been doing at our company in promoting work-life balance. And for Swire Props, an employee's well-being is our utmost concern, which lies deeply in everything we do. Next, please. And here is what I'm going to cover in the next 10 minutes. Next slide, please. I hope most of you have heard or learned something about Swire Properties. And anyway, let me tell you a little bit more about us. Go back to the previous slide. Yeah, sorry, thanks. And we were established in 1972, and we are now and this year we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. And Swire Properties is a leading developers and owners and also operators of office, retail, hotel, and residential properties, with a particular focus on mixed-use investment development in Hong Kong, Chinese mainland, Miami. And we also have presence in the Southeast Asia as well. Next, please. So our core values define us as a company and form a coherent set of principles that are relevant across to our business and underpin everything we do. And creative transformation is at the heart of what Swire Properties does and how we do it. It acts as our guiding spirit of how we perform and behave across all areas of our business. Next, please. We have a long history of sustainable development in our business, which is integrated into all areas of our business and investment decisions. To achieve our vision to be the leading sustainable development performer in our industry globally by 2030, and we develop our strategy covering 5 strategic pillars, representing our commitment to people, partners, economic performance, environmental performance, and places. Next, please. Creative transformation captures what we do and how we do it. And while sustainable development is central to our business philosophy and company culture, therefore, we formulated our employer branding strategy to establish and sustain Swire Properties as a great place to work, which aligns with our corporate brand and ethos of creative transformation and SD 2030. Our employer brand strategy also aims to maintain Swire Properties as a place where people can be part of the positive transformation resulting from our placemaking effort in the community in which we operate. Talking about our people and culture, we have a diverse and gender balanced workforce of more than 6,000 employees across our portfolios. And I'm happy to share that actually 50% of our management positions are held by women. And we focus on enhancing employees' well-being and nurturing an open and innovative culture, teamwork, and collaboration through empowering individuals taking accountability. Our organization culture and the diverse and gender balanced workforce are recognizing, strengthening, and supporting the reputation and reality of Swire Properties as a great place to work. Next, please. We always put an emphasis on the entire employee experience, not just focusing on performance and achievement, but also on their well-being, work environment, and work-life balance. In this regards, we map our employee experience throughout the entire hire to retire process of different employee groups and to identify key milestones of their journey. And obviously, listening to our people voices through our focus group survey is important, which allow us to better understand their experiences and expectations. And the employee experience mapping is a key piece of work for us to identify and prioritize our key focus and investment for creating and supporting a memorable employee experience for our people. Next, please. We recognize that people are expecting more flexibility in the workplace, so we launched various flexible workplace policies like dress for the day, staggered working hours, flexible lunch hours, and also remote working. We appreciate working from home and working from the office both have their own merits. And while our people have begun to expect more flexibility in their work arrangement, and they also value the face-to-face interaction they experience in the workplace, which improve their overall working experience as well. And we also constantly review and enhance our remuneration in both monetary and non-monetary terms, including employee benefits like medical and people policies like sabbaticals and parental leave to ensure we are competitive in attracting and retaining talent and cater people of different life stages. And everything we do is making sure whatever we do is aiming at providing our colleagues with the right work-life balance. Next, please. We recognize the importance of providing channels through which our employees can share their feedbacks with us directly. For example, our regular people engagement survey and the pulp surveys, as well as some topic-specific survey, are the best tools for us to listen to the employees and allow us to better understand and to drive positive changes that can help Swire Property an even greater place to work. And we take positive approach to employee feedback and listening to, can you go back to the previous slides? Yeah. And listening to all comments, no matter good or bad, and to taking their opinions seriously. For example, we identified more than 100 follow-up actions across departments and locations as a result of our engagement survey back in 2020. Next, please. And we continue to foster a culture of innovation and sustainability via various platforms and channels, for example, like the year-round SD events and also the program. Next, please. Employee well-being is always our priority, and we put strong focus on employee wellness. And we work to improve staff health and well-being through a wide range of events and activities. And our offices are also designed specifically to nurture the health and wellness and comfort of our staff. And next, please. And I would also like to share some of our COVID-19 responses over the last 2 years, showing that we care the well-being, not just only our people, but also the community we serve. And next. Well, we are proud to share that we met all the set KPI already. We don't stop there, but also to set even higher bar for us for 2025 and 2030, and to keep our momentum going and drive us moving forward to sustain us as a great place to work. Last, next, please. With that, it comes to the end of my sharing today, and thank you.
Thank you, Jodi, for your sharing. It's so great to learn more about Swire Properties, and as the winner of the Randstad Employer Branding Research Report, to really, to get to know more about what you've done throughout the years. So just before we move on to Kunal sharing, so I just want to remind all of you, the Q&A session is open already. So please do submit your questions anytime throughout the presentation, and we will come back to you at the last part of the webinar in the panel discussion. Now, we'd like to invite Kunal to share his sharing topic on attracting and retaining the best talent in a talent scarce market. Over to you, Kunal.
Thank you. Just checking if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Leslie. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be presenting today. Thank you for having me, Randstad, and Jodi. Thanks for the great presentation earlier. A brief introduction about myself. I oversee talent acquisition and special projects here at ESF. And part of my role in special projects is also to look at well-being as well as other initiatives. So I'll be addressing this conversation about attracting and retaining the best talent in a talent scarce market, with a focus on well-being, in line with the theme of our discussion today. So I think it's quite important to understand where we were then and where we are now. And what I mean by this is getting an understanding of where we are in terms of the climate of what it was like pre-COVID-19, and in comparison to where we were or where we are currently from 2020 onwards. So to give you a bit of an insight, I've just kind of summarized what 2019 looked like. And by that, I mean pre-December 2019. According to IMF data, we were still seeing pretty healthy economic growth at about 5%. Even though that was slightly lower than the previous years, we were still seeing economic growth, in particular in areas such as developing markets, such as Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, for example, which continues to develop. We saw high levels of mobility, so there were less barriers to entry for people and goods, and that's also true in terms of supply chain, for example, now. So it was easier to import talent into Hong Kong or various other countries, whereas now, obviously, it's a completely different situation. And then from a workspace perspective, a lot of emphasis was going on community building and physical sites. So I'm sure everyone saw the roles such as community managers, workplace community specialists. A lot of these roles were really focused on developing health and well-being concepts within the physical space of an office. And this was really essentially where the direction was going from an employee engagement standpoint prior to COVID. So in 2020, we've got a bit of a different situation where we see, increased interest rates and high inflation rates coupled with a slowdown in the economy. We look at barriers to entry. And it's important to note that when we talk about barriers to entry, we're also looking at the fact that we have barriers to entry in a backdrop of an aging global workforce. If you look at the World Economic Forum's data, in the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to see a global aging population from 7 to 20%. And that's something really to be aware of. And then obviously, if you look at the way we've adapted and changed to remote working and the requirements due to COVID, it's a massive change from community workspace building to now creating sufficient technology so that people can work from home and be flexible in a safe environment. So I think the key thing to note here is that the amount of change in a very short period of time has caused mental strain. As a matter of fact, our counseling partners, which we use for our employee assistance program, states that majority of staff members, whether they're within the schooling organization or any other organizations, are struggling with the likes of PTSD and depression. And in particular, it stems from two factors, one being COVID-19 and the second being social unrest. So when we look at all of these factors and where we are now, I think the key thing to note is that, how does this impact attrition? And what are the key areas of concern for employers and employees? Now, this was a Ernst & Young survey that was done in 2021. It was really about looking at how employers and employees are envisioning and reimagining the workplace. And to me, the key focus of this was really getting an understanding of where employees and employers align. One of the key areas of alignment was better digital tools. So creating digital environment for digital workplace. The second was physical health and mental well-being. So creating work safe environments. And the last part was professional development. So the way I look at it and I break it down is the key aspects that we need to look at as organizations and changes to our organization, in particular ESF, is looking at reskilling and upskilling, physical and mental well-being initiatives, and creating a digitally purposed workplace. I think it's also important to understand that that was the perspective of a survey that was done as a regional survey for the Southeast Asia region. This is a real focus on ESF now, and what we saw as our top 3 reasons for teachers leaving and for support staff and educational assistants. Now, fundamentally, I think it's important to note that we have very different staff types in our organization. And with teachers, they are on a different contract of a different demographic to our support staff and our educational assistants. So for our teachers, what we saw is that 81% of them were leaving because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. 77% were for family and personal reasons, and 43% was for work-life balance. Now, there were other factors as well, but these were our top 3 reasons. And for support staff, it was professional growth, compensation benefits, and workplace flexibility. I think it's also important to understand, and linking back to my first slide about the exodus that we're seeing in Hong Kong. 90% of our teachers who resigned left Hong Kong or will be leaving Hong Kong, and 23% of our support staff who resigned will be leaving Hong Kong. Now, when I sat down with my manager and we looked at our attrition percentages, whether it was for teachers, which was at 14.3, support staff, which was at 19%, and EAs, which was at 18%. On an average, it was around the 16% mark, which is considerably higher than our usual attrition rates, although not that drastically. But from an ESF historical perspective, it was still quite high by 2 to 3 percentage points. We wanted to really summarize and look at things in line with the Pareto principle, which is really working on the least amount of items that are high impact. And from a strategic priority perspective, we looked at well-being, professional growth, and compensation benefits as the 3 biggest game changers that we could make to employee well-being, as well as employee engagement across the organization. Now, it's obviously easy to look at a lot of these things as real threats to an organization. Well, in actual fact, when you're looking at things with a growth mindset, it's really about looking at how to turn threats to opportunities. So one of the key things we wanted to do from a people agenda perspective, and this will formulate both a retention strategy as well as a attraction strategy when we look at marketing, was really about how do we improve and advertise that we are a caring organization that has a major focus on physical and mental well-being, health and safety. We were thinking about, and it was an opportunity as well for us to rethink our organizational structure. So really understanding the future of work, really looking at organizational efficiency and agility, and rethinking recruitment. Now, within rethinking organizational structures, it's important to note that we went from a change, especially in the education industry, to something that's very high impact and requiring a physical presence, to something that was then moving classroom teaching all the way back to an online basis, which has never been done. It was quite amazing to see that when we looked at change management as well, McKinsey says that it takes about 413 days to on average to change an organizational structure to move to remote working. We did that in 10 days, which just goes to show that from a resilience standpoint as well, it shows that the employees can actually work in an area of uncertainty and can show a level of resilience. And this was something that we wanted to continue looking at and continue promoting as well. And then from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, because of the mobility issues we're facing, we looked at various ways in terms of impacting the demographic that we have in a more positive way. So for example, one of the key things we wanted to do was, instead of advertising in a very siloed way where each school advertised, we wanted to harness the entire branding of ESF. So instead of looking at each school decentralized, having a decentralized recruitment function, it was all centralized, and we were able to use the full marketing power of our employee value proposition. But also on top of that, we were also able to impact our overall demographic of recruitment. Traditionally, we hire majority of our candidates from Europe, and in particular the UK. In the last 2 years, we've hired individuals that are already based in Hong Kong from 48 to 59%. So there's been a drastic change from a very fixed mindset in terms of where we get talent to now a little bit more of a diverse and curious mindset, which is great because it also helps from a unconscious bias perspective and eliminating that. And then obviously we've implemented brand new policies from a D&I perspective, and D&I goes very much hand in hand when it comes to well-being as well. So I think from that perspective, we've been able to use these key indicators and these key factors as ways to look at both our attraction and retention strategies. So I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to go very quickly over the last few aspects of how we've actually included well-being as part of our strategic priority, but more so from an attraction and from a retention standpoint. One of the things we did was we included well-being as a center focus of our overall strategic priority for ESF. By that, what we wanted to do and why we wanted to make it strategic was because it's very easy to go out and implement various initiatives that are very reactive when it comes to well-being. But what we wanted to do was create a strategy whereby we have ESF being able to provide employees the tool, and then the employees at different schools, because different schools will have different needs, they will have different perspective on well-being, they will be facing different problems. Essentially, the schools will be able to then utilize the appropriate tools that are provided centrally by ESF. And this way, it allows us to ensure that we are taking responsibility of our employees' well-being, but at the same time, which we think is fundamental, is that employees also take responsibility for their own well-being. So this is sort of the hand-in-hand strategy in terms of how we've been working very closely with schools and improving our overall well-being retention strategies. So I'll just go through this slide very quickly in terms of what we've achieved. From a human capital perspective, we broke down our well-being initiatives into 3 basic facets. One is professional learning, the other is well-being, and the last one was diversity inclusion, which we've gone through earlier. In terms of the initiatives and how we've tackled it, from a professional learning perspective, we've driven our performance reflection development, which is our way of looking at performance reviews here at the education sector. And the PRD is actually focused primarily on providing empathetic leadership. So it's really understanding how your employees are feeling on a day-to-day, well, on a half-yearly basis. In terms of our well-being strategies, we've increased our employee assistance program, where we provide counseling, where we've extended the number of hours our staff members can use our counseling sessions are provided through our partner counselors. And our expenditure has increased by close to 4 to 5 times. So it goes to show that there is, in fact, well-being issues across all parts of organizations, whether it's the education industry or anything else for that matter. I just mentioned the well-being steering committee, where we're trying to drive the appreciative inquiry program. And this is really looking at well-being from a growth mindset and not from a deficit mindset. So the way we formulate our well-being program is not what can the organization do for me, but more so about what can I do, what is already here in the organization that I can use to be in a better place. It's really looking at things in terms of driving activity and positive activity within the organization. It's well-being is part of our strategic priority. We've implemented flexible working where we can. Of course, we have certain role types where we can't, for example, teachers. We've focused a lot on financial well-being as well, and providing as much support where needed to our employees. We have an emergency medical fund, which we utilize as well for very serious terminal cases. We have a COVID care support. So anyone that is relocating from outside of Hong Kong, this sprang very organically. They are able to receive ESF support in terms of food, medication, anything that they would need on a day-to-day basis. And then from a diversity inclusion perspective, we signed the EOC charter. We've established our own DEI working group, and we've managed to extend our retirement age, which is the point I made earlier in terms of looking at this as an opportunity. We've actually extended our retirement age to 70 now, which is a huge achievement, and we're one of the first education organizations to be doing that. So in terms of well-being and formulating our EVP, the way we approached this was to look at employee well-being and ESF's mission statement to then being able to achieve our fundamental goal, which is for every student to be the best they can be. And reformulating and rethinking well-being has definitely helped in terms of that, but it's also helped in terms of refocusing our mentality towards recruitment and retention as well. So apologies for rushing, but I want to thank everyone, and of course to leave a parting message and saying stay positive and test negative. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal. It's really great sharing. So I think now we've all heard about the three panelists to share about each of their presentation topic. So before we move on to the panel discussion, I would like to raise a poll survey. So you can go to this QR code to scan it, and then there's actually a poll survey around the question on how would you define work-life balance? So we have three options. Have the flexibility to work anywhere, anytime, have enough personal time, and also have a manageable workload. We will have 30 seconds, 30 seconds for you to submit your choice of answer, and it starts now. So we're seeing the submission now, and it's getting higher and higher. So we allow for more like 20 seconds more, and then we can come back to the answers and the results shortly. So I think the times, let's click the refresh button and see if we have the most updated results. So again, we are having the poll on how would you define work-life balance, and we have three options and three choices. First one is the most popular one. So now let's move on to our panel discussion, and let me invite Leslie, Jodi, and Kunal to join us. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi, Fiona.
Hi. So I think just to really address to the poll result we have just now, can I quickly just ask Jodi, what's your thought on the results as we got the most popular answer on work-life balance definition as in having the flexibility to work anywhere and anytime. So what's your thought on this?
Definitely, I do think this is the trend that people are expecting more flexibility in the workplace. And for us in Swire Properties, we also allow people to work at different times, and that we have a staggered working hour, allow people to come in earlier or leave earlier, and as long as they finish their work. And in terms of working anywhere and with the remote working policies, as I said, we also managed, and we also have to balance the right balance, having people in the office, maintaining the relationship or building rapport with the colleagues. So we have remote working policies, not like some of the companies that go directly or all going over to the remote work, but we're still striking a balance, having people come to the work and we come to the office on a regular basis while they can work anywhere within, within the region, within their home country. Yeah. I hope I answered their questions.
Yeah. So Leslie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just share my vote, but I voted for being able to work anywhere, anytime as well. I think at Randstad, as I mentioned in my presentation, we have the flexibility to work anywhere. I think that's been well received by some employees. But certainly, I think when it comes to the other options, having the right workload, it all comes down to the nature of the job, how you kind of manage that yourself. So I definitely feel that when we talk about it, especially from a recruiter standpoint, we get asked a lot by clients, how's that sort of, what kind of work-life initiatives are you able to launch? And I think that being able to incorporate your work into your life is always front of mind for a lot of candidates, especially nowadays.
Yeah. So Kunal, I didn't have the chance to ask you on your thoughts on the definition of work-life balance. However, as you guys also mentioned about work from anywhere, and also about the measures as some of the industry about 4.5 days work week. So I think as an employer, I would also like to address one of the questions from Ben, as in what would you see the major challenges of launching flexible working policies such as shorter work days and also flexible working hours? Kunal, do you have anything to share in ESF?
It's a bit difficult at ESF because we are obviously the nature of our business means that we can't really reduce the number of workdays unless schools decide that they want to reduce the amount of school days, which I don't think is going to happen. I know some countries were talking about it, as particularly California about 5 years ago, but that was due to the fact that California was going bankrupt. I think for us, what we have done is we've tried to give flexibility to role types where they are able to work from home. In particular, more on the support staff functions where they're not stakeholder facing, and by stakeholder I mean our students. So we have done that. I think it will be difficult industry to industry wise, but certainly where we can, we've been flexible.
Yeah. And then it also comes down to like in terms of getting to understand what the employees really want. And I think, Jodi, during your presentation, you also mentioned about you have done a pulse survey in Swire properties. So how would you say, like, I think one of the questions I've got here is also to how frequent would you conduct like an internal survey to get to know what the employees want? And what do you think about the result of this so far?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Dion. Well, definitely we have the regular surveys, and that our full cycle engagement survey runs once every 2 years, and in between and on an annual basis, we also run pulse surveys. And we see this as a very powerful tool, and that I'm happy to share in our recent pulse survey done in March, we achieved 100% response rate. And, wow. And that it was a very fantastic result. And also maybe it's contributed by the fact that we took our colleagues' feedback seriously. And as I mentioned, and that we identified over 100 follow-up actions from our previous survey in 2020. And that people seeing results and that we really making changes. So that's why I think our people are very eager to participate in every survey that we have.
I see. So I think that comes to like action in place, response to the demand from the employees as well. Yeah. So I actually got a question from Dave here. So I think during our discussion, we also mentioned about the challenges from, I think, heard from Kunal. So in particular towards like massaging the message towards with the senior stakeholders in the business or in an organization. Do you have any tips for the HR professional to address those topics and then to really make the changes?
Yeah, change management has been probably our biggest challenge for the last 2 to 3 years. Particularly the education industry, which is quite resistant to change, to be quite frank with you. You know, the fact is that we went from a position of teaching everyone being on site to then having to go into remote working within a 10-day period was very difficult. I think it helped not having a choice in the sense that the business can't move forward without obviously us being put in the corner this way. But I think what we wanted to do was approach change management in the most non-threatening way. And the way to really look at removing threats is really about getting everyone to kind of be on site with the change. And by that, I mean really breaking down the roles and responsibilities and really making senior management be part of the overall solution to the entire organization, as opposed to being the resistors or the blocking points. So it's really bringing everyone into the struggle together, and that really helped. And that mindset change had helped. So it was really bringing everyone together and everyone having an understanding that the common goal was purely to get kids back into school one way or another. So I think, you know, just aligning everyone under a very basic goal, specifically the organizational goal, does actually help a lot when you're looking at change management.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal. Jodi or Leslie, do you have anything to add on in terms of driving these type of changes in employees' benefit and flexibility? And how would you normally to persuade the senior stakeholders in the business?
Yeah. Perhaps let me share a little bit of our experience in Swire Properties. I fully agree with Kunal that stakeholder engagement is very important. So normally, and in to make sure we get the right support, I think at the very beginning we need to get to manage our stakeholder and to let them get onto the same page, and that's really is really helpful. And also like sometimes we might not be able to get everything done at one go, and that we need to adjust a little bit on our plan, and that we might launch some mini step and then to move forward. And that's how how we make changes in Swire Properties.
Yeah, thank you, Jodi. So in conscious of the time, I will ask the last question now. So the question is from Mimi. So as a large organization, it's easier to promote your employer branding towards the public. However, if it's from a small, medium-sized corporate, what would be your tips or suggestion on how to advertise your brand name towards a wider market or the talent pool in Hong Kong? Leslie, Kunal, or Jodi, feel free to jump on.
Sure. Maybe I chip in a little bit of my humble will. I think every company, no matter is big or small, they still have a thing. Something to sell or to attract people. I think the most important thing is that you really listen to to your employees and your candidate, and so that you know how to articulate or how to sell your the best thing of your company. And also, I think being authentic is also important. Yeah, that's a little, just my humble will.
Yeah, thank you, Jodi. And Leslie?
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of chime in on this. And I think you touched on a very good point, Jodi. It's no matter how big or how small the organization, and certainly, when we look at a size of company like Swire, in comparison to other organizations, I definitely think that the strategy could be a little bit different. But even a company such as ours, Fionn, you might attest this, but I think it's really, as you said, listening to what your employees want. We also conduct our own surveys. Every quarter we do a peak on survey to our employees to understand, what are the things that they're looking to change, what are the drivers that they're looking to push, what are some initiatives that we can launch, and I think that is basically the ground zero. That's where you kind of want to start off with. But it's also, some of the things that I said on my report, when you looked at, New World launching that initiative, that was huge news. That kind of put a little shockwave in the industry, and people were calling in just to ask what's happening with the other firms or the other firm. And I think there was a question there as well, are other firms following suit? And I think that it's really important that you also take the right marketing initiative, go on the right platforms, whether it be social media, your own Instagram. Every sort of channel has a different audience, and you're utilizing every single channel to your best ability and to speak to those audience and try a hand at a bit of roulette and try to see if you're following in the right direction in that sense.
Yeah. So, Kunal, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jodi and Leslie. I just think, just to add to Jodi's point, one of the things that we've worked on is we realized that it's best for your employees to speak about your successes. And the one way we drive that authenticity, that message of authenticity, is really about getting the employees to speak about the organization and what attracts them to being here and to continue being here. So, very much to Jodi's point, it's really about listening to your employees, showing that the organization does care about the employees and the initiatives that it's launched, and getting the employees to talk about how the initiatives that the organization have employed has impacted their lives. That to us has really helped. We did a whole employee voices campaign, which has definitely helped drive recruitment and engagement.
Yeah. So thank you, Kunal. I'm conscious of the time. We just have 1 minute left. So is there anything you guys want to cover before wrap up? Okay, cool. So thank you all for participating in today's webinar. So I do see there are lots of Q&A sections, but unfortunately, due to the time, we are not able to answer all of the questions. So any unanswered question, we will direct it back to all the panelists, and they will reply you via email. And that's all for today. And thank you again, Leslie, Jodi, and Kunal for being our speaker for today. And also thank you for all the audience. And we also appreciate your time and hope you also have some takeaway from today's webinar. So we have the first QR code, which is our 2022 Randstad Employer Branding Research Report. Feel free to scan the QR code and download the latest full report. And also, if you like this webinar, so please also to scan the other QR code on the right-hand side to give us a 5-star Google review. And we will see you next time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great
Thanks.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.